All right, welcome to the Next Level Life Show. I'm your host, Bill Hargenrader, creator of The Next Level Life and best-selling author of Mars Journey, Call to Action. I'm here today with a crazy cool guest who combines both empowering entrepreneurs as well as powering our human mission to Mars, Jeff Pernell, founder of Galactic Farms. How's it going, Jeff?
Hey, thank you very much for having me, Bill. It's going well.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. I'm super excited to get into Galactic Farms, what that's all about, what that could mean for the future, as well as your entrepreneurial journey. But I'm going to start off reading your bio. And we'll begin. Jeff Pernell is the founder of Galactic Farms, which makes good food in small places. In 2014, Jeff designed and built an aquaponics microgreens system for the University of Montana Dining Services. And that year, Jeff founded Galactic Farms. His company was contracted to design, build, and implement Space 200, an aquaponics educational system for UMDS. And that year, GF also worked on the Commander of High Seas, which is a year-long Mars simulation project funded by NASA to create an experimental bioponics system for the crew to work with while in isolation from the surrounding environment. That sounds like pretty cool stuff. Yeah. We'll talk about that more on this interview. At the end of 2015, Jeff built the Galactic Farms demonstration system, a vertical bioponics system, and there's plenty of plans for growth for the future for Galactic Farms. So once again, welcome to the show, Jeff. Why don't you just let me give a little before we get to Galactic Farms, let's talk a little about your personal journey, your entrepreneurial journey. How did you get started in this field? What were some of your things that got you going in that path?
Sure. So as you know, my background is in education. I've got a degree in business and then a degree in business education, and with that, I started a school, a Montessori middle school, high school program. And what we were looking at was ways to teach science in kind of a complete biome, like how to explain how the different parts of a system work together. And so we used that with the students, and quite successfully. We did really well, and it was a great learning tool. After that, my entrepreneurial journey was running into some serious problems. And with the crash of 2008, people were pulling kids out of private schools, and
wow.
And the kind of the combination of that and my marriage taking a dive and actually collapse led me to the spot where I am now. It's part of the journey as you go down, right? And then you get back to the bottom spot. And what I took away from my work at the Montessori Academy was a real big interest in applying what we had used as these small little models in a larger scale, and wondering how I could turn that into a business, and really what I saw as a necessity into the future. We haven't really even been successful on this planet keeping a biome going separate from the larger environment. Yeah. So it's a challenging puzzle. And it puts you in the place of playing nature, which is not very easy because it's very complicated in a lot of ways. And so, but we've been trying, right? We've got space stations up there and everything. So that was my inspiration. It's like, how are we going to build something that can keep people alive on another planet? And then it occurred to me, we need to keep us alive on this planet.
There you go. Yeah.
And that this is our spaceship. And that really, it resounded with me from when I was a little kid, like designing space stations and everything. I was focused on the food because I was always curious, where is this food going to come from? I grew up in Montana. I saw where food comes from. We don't have a really good concept of that. But if you're living in an isolated situation, you are going to be spending time making food. And so that means that we've got to have people thinking about making their own food. And then how are we going to grow that food in a changing climate? And that's my big concern right now, is I'm seeing all these big variations in climate. And so with that, like, how do you stabilize that? We're smart. The humans are smart. We're going to figure it out. But we need to start thinking about it before it's too late. So it's more proactive. And that's where Galactic Farms is coming.
No, that's awesome. I can really appreciate that. Currently my expertise is in innovation technology, cybersecurity, master's in information systems, but I'm actually like 4 classes away from a bachelor's of science in environmental science from about 15 years ago, and I moved on for pursue computer science. But even back then, it was just very clear you know, how vulnerable we are, and that not just about global warming, which ties in, but for food supply, and with talking about growing practices and the soil erosion and reduction of nutrients and soil depletion over time. And it's when you really start looking at that, it's pretty darn scary.
Yes.
So what would, let's before we go into more positive, what are some of the scarier things that you see that are affecting us when it comes to our food supply?
I hate talking.
I'm a little out of practice, so I
the
want to hear.
scary stuff. We've got basically vortex climate systems, so you're going to have really concentrated spots of heat and cold.
Yeah.
And so if that occurs over a field that is in production for agriculture, whether it's growing corn or raising cattle, like that kind of situation, like it's an instant kill and an instant loss in the market. And so that to me is frightening. That is where we're not able to control the environment. And this has happened. You can look it up. I think it was last year that there was something like 10,000 head of cattle were wiped out by one of the vortex freezes.
Wow.
And so it's when you get a really fast drop in temperature. And then we've got increased flooding in areas that's going to wipe out major grain production. And like there's a lot of serious issues happening on this planet, and regardless of the cause, we have to realize this is a planet. It's a planetary system.
Yeah.
We need to be treating it as if we would be treating a spaceship. It's like the ISS is circling our planet, and we've had crew up there for years and years. That's a tiny environment, and they work so hard, and it's so expensive to keep that environment going. And truly, it's not self-sustaining even in that. Even with all the billions of dollars they put into it, it's not like they can sustain that. So projects like High Seas that's happening over in Hawaii, those long-term simulations are really important for figuring out how to survive.
Yeah, no, and there's a challenge of, how do you change the global consciousness, or just the kind of the runaway course the culture is on as far as using up what we have in plenty, and then also at the same time developing technologies that allow us to become sort of masters of nature in some way. And it's not an either or. You have to work on. I believe you have to work on both of them. And so the High Seas you mentioned, it's a good segue. Can you tell us more about that project and how Galactic Farms and yourself, you're involved in that?
Sure. So High Seas stands for the Hawaii Space Exploration Analog Simulation. I got it.
Nice.
And so what it is, it's been going for several years now. They've been building up each crew. I think this is the fourth mission, and this is a year-long mission. But each crew, it's a crew of 6 people, usually 3 women, 3 men, and they've been building up to a full year. And this year, this last season was the full year that they were participating in. The scientist that contacted me is Carmel Johnson, and she found me through the project at the university and was interested in aquaponics. And so in aquaponics, if you don't know, is similar to hydroponics, except instead of using like chemicals that you pour in or other salts that you'd add to the system, you're using fish and a biological system to create food for the plants.
Nice.
So it's a way of it's a test and simulated, closed loop biosystems for growing food, and so that's what she was interested in. And so and by the time that I met her, and by the time we got the projects out the door, it was about, I think I had maybe 4 weeks, and so it was kind of a scramble, and we certainly learned some things along the way. But what she asked for was something that she could experiment with.
Yeah.
And so we created these small systems designed for easy transport, and then I'm sure we'll be able to show you pictures of what they look like. And I call them the X30s. They're 30-gallon systems.
Yeah.
And the idea was on 2 of them, be adding fish, and doing a traditional aquaponics food, like you'd be feeding them, food leftovers, whatever extra greens that you might have from other systems.
Yeah.
And the other system was going to be bioponics, based on human urine, and that is like you're feeding bacteria, and that bacteria is in turn creating nitrates. The nitrates are absorbed by the plants, and it's a way of processing a waste. And so, yeah, that's what they're doing.
No, that's cool. Bioponics.
There's lots of information on High Seas. You can follow them on Twitter as well. If people
Did you head out that way, or would you?
I haven't been there yet. I just send off the projects. I get posts every now and then about how things are going. And I wish I could say that they were going better. There's lots of issues. It's tough to live in an environment that is run where you want to run all these projects, and keep the people alive that are there, because they're up on top of a mountain. It's freezing, and so they're in a dome, so they have to rely on heaters. But most of them are usually, like, if you look, they're wearing like big parkas and everything.
Yeah.
It's a neat project, but I'm hope they're going to be coming out next September. That'd be September of this year, 2016, and I hope to be there when they open up the dome. It would be really cool to get in there.
No, that'd be.
That I'd want to breathe the air. It's probably pretty slow.
No, definitely. That could be something. That could be an experience. So, with a name like Galactic Farms, where did the name come from? And we talked a little before the show about Mars's inspiration. So, how the name Galactic Farms come about, and what would be some of your why is Mars, either the planet itself or the challenge of us getting there? Why is that? Why do you find that inspiring?
I find it inspiring mainly because that's where the focus is, and that seems like where everybody wants to go. So I'm glad because it's that direction. I'm happy just being in space. Period. I think it's amazing that we're there. Like, my humble opinion is I love Mars, but it makes a lot of sense to really build up the moon first and use that as a launch spot. And it's always confused me on why we're not, and maybe it's in the plans to develop that first, but that it's a lot easier to get resources out that way.
Oh yeah, no, I mean there's lots of.
I think Mars is inspirational for people because it's similar to Earth, and there's more likelihood that there was life there, and so and we've had it in our mythology for so long. I remember, wasn't it the Martian Chronicles? I remember my mom reading me out of that book, and then me seeing it on TV as a kid, and I was scared of Mars. It was a weird place. Anyhow, I personally don't want to live on Mars. I just want to make that clear. No plan on that. But
that's good. I'm personally not allowed to live on Mars. My wife won't let me, but we'll see. Maybe in 50 years or so.
I'll visit. I would visit, but I want to return. I want a return flight. I was listening to, what's the guy's name? The founder of Mars One. Bas Lansdorp. Thank you. I was listening to him on a podcast, and he was talking about the people going there right now, and it's just. It's an adventure. Like, there's always been new lands to conquer, but we've never had to do it without air.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. My wife, she's a fan. She's a supporter, but she's probably a bigger supporter of exploring. We got the moon, we got Mars. She wants to explore the oceans. There's different. The ocean
would be even closer to home. We should be trying to live way down in the ocean.
And it's interesting for me. I love skydiving. I went, one time. It was fun for me. I'm cool with that. She doesn't like skydiving, but she'll go, snorkeling or down. Like, I don't want to go under the water. There's sharks down there. I'd rather be up. But digress a little bit here.
Again? Would you live on Mars? Like, do you have a desire to be on Mars?
I have a desire to see and explore, and I've seen a very small portion of Earth right now. So, you know, I've been to Europe, and I've been to, you know, Mexico and Canada and all across the United States, but I want to get to Africa, I want to get to Australia, I want to get to China, I want to get to Antarctica. And I think as that happens, it's, you know, I've got plans to continue to make that happen. As that happens, as you see more of the world, you can appreciate more of the world.
Then you're like, why the heck would I want to leave?
There's that. But then there's it's the next thing when you explore and what's the next challenge, what's the next thing. So for me personally, I love supporting the mission. I'll do everything I can to get the word out for people that want to go. And that's the thing about our global society, is just that, you know, you don't have to, it's not just cut and dry. It's not that these persons are Martians that want to be, that live there. And we all, you know, I just want to, you know, sit back and watch on TV, and over here, I want to design this system. We all can work together to make it one big global mission, but not in my current plans to get to Mars. But like I said, it's out there on the horizon, and yeah, for sure.
So one of the things that you just touched on that I really rang true with me is that I'm excited about going to Mars, because what I see is if we develop the ability to live there, we'll be able to preserve our current planet here. Like, and that's what makes me excited.
Yeah.
Because we're an isolated environment, just like what we're talking about simulating or trying to do over on Mars. Same kind of deal here on Earth. It's just happened to be perfect when we got there, or almost perfect. You know, things go up and down. We've got a timeline of all kinds of eras that have come and gone with life. So
yeah. No, and I call that Mars-based thinking for Earth-based living, and essentially, the more we figure out how freaking difficult it is to actually make it happen, inspiring as it is, and, you know, accepting the challenge, you know, that as we do, it's still super, super hard. And you got to think in some ways, as we explore that, we just will appreciate more of what we have. And then also when we come up with, well, how would you set up a new colony without the resources? And you talk about efficiency and self-sufficiency, you know, and productivity, and, you know, and it's like, well, you can start borrowing those concepts and bringing them back. So like I said, 15, 20 years ago, I was doing environmental science. This whole idea of efficiency in processes, you know, was, you know, maybe in the automotive industry was big. We started talking about how people, we don't need to do that. We're going out and we're producing. And now it's like, oh, we're not just saving resources to save the earth. We're saving resources to save money and to improve our profit. And I think as we do more and more technology and get things out there, people will say, well, if we can do that with these minimal resources, let's apply that to the homegrown processes and make that even better. So.
Yeah, I think actually incentivizing the recycling end of the economic process is you're going to see that. You are seeing it. It's happening right now. And so you're getting a lot more interest in industries that find use in waste stream, basically. Once the profit in the waste stream. And there is. Nothing is wasted. We can use everything.
Yeah.
I wish it wasn't always money driven, but that's how it is right now. And that's how we've learned to do it. And I think it's as long as it's used as a tool to help smooth economic transitions and not as a tool to totally mess around with other economies, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And that's also when you get into a space like, you know, Mars, or even into, you know, food production, or my wife's case with diabetes, having a person with diabetes and having pharmaceutical companies, you get into the spectrum of nonprofits, for-profits, benefit corporations, and people have their preconceived notions about each one. And in the Mars space, you have the Mars Society, which is awesome and huge. And you have a lot of, other ones like Mars Foundation, Mars Institute, Mars One. And, there's this idea of like, you have to have a nonprofit to, have a nonprofit to donate to give money to make this happen. And then you have SpaceX, which is, using their, hey, we're a for-profit company to make this thing happen, and all these benefit corporations in between. And I just think that you need that full spectrum. And did you have any questions about that with like Galactic Farms? Any questions of conscience, or are you still going through them?
Yeah. I'd say we're still going through them. It's questionable because we're kind of counting on things getting worse in the environment and building to prepare for that. So, I mean, that says something about your viewpoint on where the world is. It's like, I don't mean that we're going to be here to rescue it. What I'm saying is that we see problems coming up.
Yeah.
And so,
well,
am I answering your question? I don't know.
Yeah, you are. It's basically, I was kind of touching on, just on a tangent about, kind of just, mental ethics around, developing products and where to go a nonprofit route or to go a for-profit route or a benefit corporation route.
Sorry. We're for-profit. Right?
Yeah.
Just given the tools that we have in this economy, it made the most sense to us. I've run a nonprofit before, and it is it's an interesting set of hoops you have to jump through, and I'm glad that there's people out there that can do it. But our goal here is not education as much as it was like food production. So it's for profit.
Yeah, no, that's fine. You have that set vision. But I was just thinking, my wife and I we live in Philadelphia, on the East Coast, and they have a couple of inner city food co-ops.
Right.
Not only just food co-ops, but also where, like, you might have a park that's been converted into, a growing ground, and then also literally just individual lots. The building was tore down, and we're setting up, we're growing corn, and we're growing tomatoes, and we're doing things like that. And I see, even if, things in a perfect, or in a happy case scenario, which we're not really on that path right now as far as the environment goes, I would still see a benefit for Galactic Farms in an inner city type of environment or a space constrained environment. Do you agree?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. If nothing else, what it would do is it would put it's possible to get food into areas that you call a food desert, like where there's no fresh food available. You can take these units and, drop them wherever you'd like. It's very, it becomes, and then what you're also doing is adding employees of that, the structure. I guess I'm not going to go into a whole lot what our plans are, but the idea is that it would be a very decentralized farming network, and it can be anywhere. And the idea is you put the food production as close as you can to where it's consumed.
Yeah. And is aquaponics, is that considered organic, or can you make organic aquaponics?
There are there's ways of certifying aquaponics organically. I'm probably not the person to talk to. Sarah Tabor is Director of Health and Safety from the Aquaponics Association. I'd get in touch with her.
Okay.
Yeah, she'd be the one that is helping guide these larger corporations that are doing aquaponics and being certified. So she's actually an awesome resource.
Yeah.
Galactic Farms, because of some of the issues that we've had with our test runs with aquaponics, we're actually looking at some other options, and so I think we're going to be moving away from fish. It's a higher life form, and because of its higher life form, it kind of lives in a narrow band of the biome, and if something happens to that, it's much more likely to have disastrous results.
Sure.
We've got large die-off because one input was off for some reason or another, or maybe you had a fish or two die and had an ammonia spike. There's lots of reasons we can have this, but anyway, when you die off, then it kills an entire system, which can be, for business, very difficult to deal with. But also, it's the inputs that are going into it, and it's questionable whether or not the fish food that you're feeding these fish is a truly sustainable practice, because that's either coming from it's not coming from renewable resources, I guess is the best way. I don't want to name names out there, but there needs to be a way to create a renewable resource, which brings us back to the positive things about space exploration. High Seas is looking at, one of the other scientists on there is looking at cyanobacteria. I think I'm saying that right. And
blue green algae, right?
Yeah, and so in creating they photosynthesize. So what they're thinking about doing, and they use carbon, apparently, or CO2. So they're using part of the environment from Mars, which is 96% CO2, highly toxic. Anyhow, pull that in, create fish food or food for other animals. And for me, I think they'd be more interested in bugs. Bugs, insects. Bugs is maybe slang. So anyway, I'm still into bioponics, which is using life. I just think that we don't need to go to the higher life forms to do that. Life is really important to keep part of your system. Concentrate on the simpler forms because they have bigger tolerances, and that makes counting on things a lot easier.
Yeah.
You can keep backups. It's easy to keep backups of bacterial samples where other, for instance, the fish, you might have eggs on backup, but it's still not small.
That makes sense. No, it's interesting. Because up in it was recently in the Poconos, an hour or 2 hours north of Philadelphia, and the closer, the higher you get, clearer the air, and they have lichen, which is pretty much cyanobacteria, which can be just a fungus and an algae, but then they also have fungus, an algae, and a bacteria, and they have 3 organisms working together symbiotically, and they're on rocks. They're breaking down like the minerals and rocks, and then they're like got the algae photosynthesizing, and you got the bacteria in there, and I'm like, that just seems like something should be made from that.
Yeah, they're working on it, guaranteed. I think you're exactly right. They're looking at early life, looking at Mars, and like, all right, what's the situation there? What did early life look like here? Let's implant that over there, and we're gonna end up terraforming for sure. Already, we've probably inoculated the planet with bacteria.
Probably. So we could talk like hours about this.
Yes.
But we can keep the interview under 30, just so people, they have things that they're doing besides watching.
What are these guys talking about?
So, can you give like one tip that you would give to maybe somebody about an entrepreneurial journey, about somebody starting off, about they have a big idea, grand idea. What would you say to somebody about not should they move forward, but what are some things that from your journey that you could maybe impart? 1 or 2 tips.
Yeah. Start small, meaning that things that you build, when you build them, make sure they're scalable in your mind. Like they should be, and on paper, and on the cash flow. Everything should be
right.
But start small, and you can write all the numbers and everything with a really small investment. You can start something for under $1,000. You can do it, and then scale it. And then when you scale it the next time, then you've got to get buyers. So whoever, you need somebody to be giving you money at that point. If you can't get somebody to give you money at that point, you need to pivot, right, and change direction, or be willing to accept that your idea sucks, and maybe that you should move another direction. It's hard. It's probably one of the hardest things is to be self-critical in those moments, because you just scaled it, right? You saw potential and you scaled it, like one bump up, and then it's exciting at that point because it's the time where you're counting on other people to pay you to be right, basically.
Yeah.
And if you're not, it's a little hard to recover from that, but you do, and you pivot and you look at what you do have and move from there. That's business-wise. That was like 5 or 6 tips, probably.
That's really good. Starting small, scaling up, and then because obviously if you try and take on too much, you get overwhelmed. If you have a good idea that has a lot of broad cross applications, sometimes not my piggyback advice, you'll hear people that'll say, well, go bigger, or, well, hey, this will do this, this, and this. And it can be exciting to say, yeah, okay. But, I would say stick to your guns, take your advice, stay small. Unless you got a huge angel investor that just, puts a lot of money in you. But even then, you can run into trouble with that, right?
Yeah, I would still, even if that happened, even if the angel dropped down and presents that to you, we're applying for grants. We're after bigger money to do the next step. But even if that happens, you can't pretend that, or you can't. It's your money. It is money that you're responsible for. So even if you have a big investor, that it is to make a model, make a model before you scale it. That is, and test out somebody else's model that when they're providing it. Yeah. I'm super grateful for all my chances to work with the University of Montana and their dining services there for just the opportunities to explore and test this stuff out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just a book popped my mind in a few. Daymond John, from Shark Tank, FUBU, he's got a book out called this came out recently, called The Power of Broke. Okay. And talking about staying hungry, even when you get that infusion of money, about keeping genuine and keeping real, and just the power of broke isn't that I'm broke. It's just that you're going to basically stay hungry. And when success does come, not let that blow you out of your lane.
You've got to prepare for success. That's the thing. You've got to have that catcher mitt ready as well. I've got other entrepreneur friends that they could, if they had the pitcher's mitt, the money would be flying into their hands, but because they're not ready to catch it. And
sure.
I don't know that we figured that part out yet. There's definitely money in food, but there might be more elsewhere. It would be nice to maybe through swag. There's a lot of weird stuff out there. Like books. My brother's an author. You're an author. Like books, you see them popping up. Knowledge is valuable, and that's why people are willing to go out there and pay for it.
Yeah, and speaking of knowledge, let's drop some knowledge on our viewers about what's coming up next. Where can they find more about Galactic Farms?
Sure.
On the horizon.
So galacticfarms.com. That's my website. I'm building it, so if you get to a construction site or if it looks kind of janky, that is on purpose. But it links right to the Facebook page, which you'll see more information. But the most, and I don't. Maybe it's just my own issues with trying to keep up with all the media, but I do a lot of tweeting, which I don't really know how to tie to the other things, and then I Instagram. So you can find it Galactic Farms on Twitter and on Instagram as well.
Awesome. This has been a great conversation. Like I said, goodbye. Two of my favorite subjects. And we'll probably check back in with you on this at some point in the future, give everybody an update. But we're gonna wrap things up, Jeff. Thanks for your time, brother. Yeah,
no problem. And next time, I feel like I missed out not hearing more about the Mars City competition, but maybe that you could fill me in and let me know how that all.
Yeah, definitely. I'll fill you in actually right after we get off this. But for now, I'm gonna wrap it up. If you enjoyed watching this interview, please give a thumbs up, click subscribe for more of them, and we'll see you all on the next video. Take care. Bye.